Good evening, my brothers and sisters, family on Facebook. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk About It, our weekly talk show where we are relevant, informative, and engaging about issues that affect our community. I'm glad that you joined in with us this evening. Do me a favor. First of all, I want you to like our page. The second thing I would like for you to do is to share it. Share it with someone else. And then I want you to leave comments. This show is all about issues that affect us. Tonight, our show will deal with voting. As you know, Election Day is coming on June the 2nd, and we need to be concerned about voting. And so I'll give you a few minutes. As I will come back, we have a guest co-host joining with us this evening. Dr. Joseph Davis will be here, and we are going to together talk about issues that are relevant to voting, why we should vote, the reason voting was put in place, and what we stand to lose if we don't vote. And so, won't you share this? Reach out to someone, tag them, let them know, join us as we are getting ready to talk about issues that surround voting. Well, good evening. I am your host, Reverend Edward Mason, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It is important for us to understand that in the time in which we live in, we need to be about making a difference and a change. The only way that we can do that, or the most effective way that we can do that, is by exercising our right to vote. Listen, I know there are many challenges and there are many things that people say about voting. Some say, why vote? Because my vote won't make a difference. Some say, well, I don't need to vote because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. But listen, family, I want to encourage you and help you to understand that voting is important. Our forefathers, our grandparents, our great grandparents went through a lot for us to have the right and the opportunity to vote. And so we cannot just sit on the sidelines and then complain and talk about things when things don't seem to go our way, or when our community seems to be left out and being disenfranchised, being the least and the less fortunate, not represented at the table. But we have to be concerned about our community. Not just our community, but we got to be concerned about our children, our grandchildren, our brothers and sisters and cousins and nieces and nephews. And so it's up to us to exercise our right to vote. And so we cannot afford to sit on the sideline. Some of you have already received, if not most of you, your ballot by mail. I trust that you have done what I have done, filled it out, placed it back, the ballot in the envelope, sealed it up, signed it, and then put it back in the mail. Yes, I know it may be lying on your kitchen table, your dining room table. It may even be lying on your breakfast bar. But listen, I do not want you to procrastinate anymore. I want you to take the time, open the envelope up, fill it out, and put it back in the mail. If you are not able to physically go to the mail, then certainly you can complete it and fill it out and then place it in your mailbox. And when your mail carrier comes around, they will retrieve it out of your box and they will take it to the post office for you. There is no excuse for us not to vote. There are a lot of challenges that we have facing us, and it's up to us to do the things that's right and to make a difference. We can't just sit on the sidelines and talk about problems if we have not been a part of the solution. The reality is, for us not to vote and cast a vote is really another way of us voting for whatever happens. And then you complain about what's going on. I know some don't want to hear it. I know some are not interested in it. But listen, I am concerned about our community. And so, therefore, I want you to know how important voting is. When we don't vote, we cannot complain about what's going on when we're not getting the proper resources to our community, when our schools are not being properly funded, and our hospitals are not receiving that which they need. We are in a bad state of mind. We're in a plight. And so I want you to know how important voting is. Not only do we need to cast our ballot for local officials, but we also need to cast our ballot for other officials. And my brothers and sisters, it is important for us to know we have got to take our heads out of the sand. We've got to do it and be about change. Oh, when we watch the news, we see all of the things that's going on around us. We see all of the things that's happening. We see all of the things that are creating problems, but yet we aren't doing anything about it. We can't do anything about it because we're not in the position to, because we are not voting. I trust that you have done what you needed to do to be registered to vote. Yes, that's right, registered to vote. Now, to vote in the primary, you missed the deadline. The deadline was yesterday. You had to have registered by yesterday in order to be able to vote in the primary. And so I have had information on my Facebook page where you could have clicked on the link and gotten registered right through the website. You didn't even have to physically go in. You could have registered. But if you missed the deadline to get registered for the primary, you still have time to get registered for the general election, which is an important election that's going to make a big difference as to what happens in our community. And listen, let me tell you, a lot of things are going to happen, and we are not going to be able to blame anyone but ourselves. Look at what we have now in the White House. Number 45. Look at his reaction to this COVID-19. Look at his reaction to all of the problems that we have faced here in this yet to be United States of America. So if you're upset about that, guess what? And you did not vote and you allowed him to get in, guess who you have to blame? You can't blame nobody else. You have to blame yourself. We have to get involved. So happy to have joining with us this evening for this talk show a very good friend of mine, a partner with me in ministry, one in the person of Dr. Davis. Let's give him a welcome. Dr. Davis, welcome to Let's Talk About It.
Thank you, sir.
Well, as you have heard, we are talking about voter registration and voting. I know you live in Pennsylvania, but you've lived in Maryland for a long time. And I know that you can speak to some of the challenges that we have had as it relates to our community.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show, Pastor Mason. Um, the communities today are really suffering, and we have nobody to blame but ourselves because once again, when you don't vote, what you're saying is whatever happens, happens, and I'm satisfied. You got to understand that our vote means something. And because our vote means something, you have to get out and exercise. Martin Luther King gone through a lot of trying to make sure that voting is privileged for the blacks. I mean, people have suffered, people have gone out their way and made a lot of sacrifice so that we'll be able to vote. And so voting is a privilege, once again, that we can't take for granted. It's something that we have to really look at and take full advantage of because it's a right. You have the right to vote as a citizen. You have the right to voice your opinion on who you want in the office. And so, once again, I heard you say number 45. Yeah, Donald, he's in there. And if we don't do something, he's going to wind up staying in there another 4 years. And once again, America cannot afford to let this man stay in another 4 years. Already, people are saying they don't recognize America. They don't know America because, once again, racism has cropped up like never before. Things are going on, even with um, even with the other countries, how he has isolated America from our allies and all these things. And so, once again, we're in trouble as a nation. We are in trouble. And once again, we can do something about it. We can, once again, because we have the right to vote. And I'm encouraging everybody, if you haven't registered, please register and make sure you get out and vote because it's very important.
Well, Dr. Davis, let me ask you: when you were a young man coming along, did your parents instill the importance of voting in you? And if so, what did they say?
Absolutely. They encouraged me to vote. They told me it was a right to vote, and then they pressed the point pressed a point that as a citizen of the United States, I should take this privilege and use it to the advantage of making sure we have people in office that's going to look after our interests, after our concerns. And so, once again, my father, he was a Republican for many years. And then he switched over to Democrat because he said the Republicans were not looking after the people the way they should. And so he switched over and became a Democrat. When I went to register to vote, I went and registered as a Democrat because, once again, listening to my father and mother talk and how they were telling me what the Republicans were doing, I decided to go with the Democrat uh, and and vote for the Democratic Party. But at this time, like I said, they were instilling within us the importance of voting and how it is a privilege to be able to vote and to make sure that you vote for the candidate that you feel best. Now, they didn't tell me who to vote for, but they told me to make sure that I vote for the candidate that I felt like was going to carry on my wishes, my concerns, and what have you.
Well, I know when I was coming along, my parents instilled upon me the right to vote. And one of the things that they really pressed upon me was many of the privileges that I enjoyed as an adult and as a human being were because of others who had lived before me that had exercised their right to vote and had allowed things to be put in place so that I would have these privileges.
Mm.
We know the right for us to have desegregated schools came about because we had the opportunity to vote. Uh, Riding on public transportation, not having to go to the back of the bus, came about because we had the right to vote. Being able to eat anywhere in a restaurant and not have to go to the back door, and drinking at public water fountains, all of that came because of the right to vote. And civil rights helped to propel that along the way. And so, really, many of what we enjoy now, even many have good jobs, good paying jobs. They are getting nice salaries or at least a decent salary Some have
Yeah.
risen up to supervisory positions, and some have even
Yeah.
started their own businesses and what have you. But all of that came about because our grandparents, our foreparents took the time to vote, and they
Yeah.
made sure that laws were passed and enacted. And I know we've got some fools and some people that are in office that are doing some crazy things and are not acting in accordance to what we would like them to do. But then the question then becomes, are we holding their feet to the fire? Are we attending those public meetings and those sessions where things are being voted on? Do we pull up online when certain committees are meeting, whether it's the transportation committee or the safety committee or the health and welfare committee, the public committee? Are we showing up? I know I used to go down to City Hall, and I would sit in there when they were having those meetings, and I would address the legislators and let them know how I felt about. I sent them emails and I called their office and I let them know how I felt about things. And the only way that we can really let our voices be heard is we have to get active, and we have to activate what we have accessible to us. And that best practice is voting. And once we put someone in office, we have to learn how to hold their feet to the fire. I mean, believe me, folk will not do crazy things if they know that you are watching them. If they know that somebody is looking over their shoulder and somebody is constantly engaging in them, engaging with them about issues that matter. Listen, we've got a problem in America. And I say yet to be, because it's certainly not united, but yet
Right.
to be this United States of America. We've got problems. We've had problems right here in the city of Baltimore, here in our state of Maryland. We've had problems close to us, around us, in states far and near. There's problems brewing right now. And listen, the way that we are able to get things accomplished, to get things done, is by electing people that we feel have our best interests at heart. Not somebody that's going to take us for granted just because we're African Americans. Because believe it or not, very few politicians can win a seat if we as African Americans step up to the plate and let our voices be heard. I mean, really, Obama would have, Obama made it because the African Americans stood behind him, as
Yes.
well as other ethnic groups. But this other joker, we call him 45, he made it because many of our people decided not to go to the polls and vote. And I don't know about you, Dr. Davis, but that bothers me. I get upset. I mean, my feathers get fluffered. I get disturbed when I see things that are going on, and we've got people in office, especially when we have states attorneys and judges and folk in offices and positions of power and authority that don't do the right thing. And we sit by and we get on the telephone and talk to our family and friends and complain. But the bottom line is, did we vote to make a
And
change?
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I have to agree with you due to the fact if people can't see what's going on, as much as number 45 Donald has done, and yet nobody held his feet to the fire except for the Congress and those Democrats. The senators, the senators, just let him do whatever he wants. And now you see the mess that we're in. We're in a crisis here in America because once again, if you do not vote, if you do not um, get out and vote and make a change here in America, you won't know America in 4 years. You won't know it because once again, you might as well go ahead and speak Russian. You might as well get ready because he's going to turn this country worse than what it is today. And so we have to vote. The other thing is we have to understand that I heard Vice President Joe Biden say the soul of America is at stake. And I'm telling you right now, he's not just saying it, he's letting us know up front that we're in jeopardy of losing the soul of America because people will not vote. That's how Donald Trump got in here in 2016 because people were suppressed and they didn't vote because they didn't like what was going on. So much nonsense was told about Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump was able to get people suppressed and down and just downhearted that they weren't interested in voting. And so whatever we get, whatever's happening, we deserve because we put this man in office. We sat home, didn't vote, and then we said, "No, I'm not going to vote because my vote don't matter. Your vote do matter. It matters in a way that once again, you are a citizen of America. You have the right to vote, and we need to encourage people to vote." Every time I talk to someone in our race, I want to make sure they're voting. I make sure they register because once again, it's important for these young people to vote. And I know these young people don't understand the struggles that I went through back in the 60s. They don't understand when you had to go and march and you have to go and do things and protest and what have you. They don't understand it. But once again, it wasn't bad on me as it was for those people down in Selma, Alabama, all down there in Mississippi, because they had dogs chased on them. They had water hose turned on them. I mean, it was just terrible. And those people sacrificed to march to make sure things were done right here in America. And once again, according to the history, Johnson signed the bill,
Mm-hmm.
the bill to get things done. That's because we stood together. And America today, I'm saying that we need to stand together as Black people, even as Hispanics, Mexicans that are in America. We need to stand together because it's not getting any better, but it's going to get worse. And once again, number 45 can't stand Blacks, Hispanics, Mexicans. He just can't stand nobody because he is a racist. And if you go online, you can pull up Donald Trump's history and his father's history.
Mm-hmm.
His father was a KKK. His father was arrested twice, once in Washington and once in New York for marching with a KKK rally. And I'm just saying, you know the old saying, the fruit don't fall far from the tree.
Well, it's evident, and all I got to say is, if that's the case, then a lot of people have been eating bad apple pie with worms in it. I mean, our nation is in a tailspin.
Yes, sir.
Even right now, we have over 100,000 persons who have lost their lives due to this coronavirus, all
Yes.
because he refused to act, and he talked about how it was going to disappear magically and how the cases were going to go down. And he doesn't even listen to the people he put in charge, the medical
Yep.
people. And listen, if we think that he is on our side, if we think that things are going to happen just by osmosis, then I'm afraid to say we're just like an ostrich. We got our head stuck in the sand in a hole, and our whole back end is sticking out. And
Yes,
before
sir.
long, we're going to find ourselves in some serious trouble. Listen, this country is in a downward tailspin. We are
Yep.
spinning out of control. And it's not just in the White House, it's right here in our individual states.
Yep.
I was saddened. I was very saddened to hear that our governor had the audacity here in Maryland to vote down funding of our HBCU schools. But yet
Wow.
he voted to give money to the Pimlico racetrack. He didn't want to fund the education of what the court This
Right.
court, this they went to court years ago and they won in court and they still have not funded like they were supposed to, like the court mandated. And I'm sure if enough of us got together and stood for what was right, I'm sure we could have made a difference. But the problem is we can't stand together. We
Exactly.
won't stick together.
That's right.
And when we don't stick together, they divide us and conquer us.
Yes. Yes.
Not only
That's
that,
the whole.
Dr. Davis, voting is so important, but just as important, we need to have competent and capable people that are running. We don't do what our Caucasian friends do.
Right.
They start preparing their children for greatness, even when they are in kindergarten. They talk to them about staying out of trouble. They
Yep.
talk to them about living a good life, a life that's above reproach. They put them in areas and scenarios where they can excel. They give them a good education. Even if they send them to public schools, they turn around and hire tutors to tutor them at home to make sure that they get what they need. And as they grow up, they keep instilling upon them for them to do well. And they channel them and they put them in places where they can learn. These pages that they have over at the White House and in the Senate. I know we first thing we say is we're not going to volunteer, but those persons are interns. And if you check
Yep.
the record and check the history, many of them grow up to be politicians and lawyers and doctors because they've been exposed to some things. I never forget when I was coming along, my father kept me around him and older folk because he wanted me to be exposed to things. And
Yep.
that's how I've been able to gain much of my knowledge, is because he exposed me to some things. And so, what do we do today? Most of us, many parents, we allow our children to be educated by YouTube. We allow our children to be educated by the games that they play. We don't take the time to try to encourage them and nurture them. We don't tell them how wonderful they are and what possibilities they have ahead of them and what they can be and what they can grow up to achieve. We don't tell them that. We don't instill upon them the importance of having a right. It's voting is not just a right. Voting is an American obligation. And until we get to the place where we recognize that we are obligated to cast a vote for what we feel is right, we need to talk to these candidates. We need to go to where they are when they have rallies. We need to send them emails and send them letters and make phone calls and have them answer our questions. What would you do in certain situations? How do you feel about these rights? And how do you feel about this scenario? And how do you feel about this group of people? If we don't ask them the tough questions before they get in office, we can forget about it once they get there. Then we have to go through the process of trying to vote
Absolutely.
them out. But we don't
That's
do like the others do. They groom successors. They groom persons to grow up and be able to succeed and take over. Who do we have? Who are we grooming for to be the next president? Who are we grooming to be the next senator? Who are we grooming to be the next person in the governor's house? Who are we grooming to be the next person in the mayor's house? In fact, when you look at it, we are too busy fighting amongst ourselves to be able to make effective change. We won't come together and stand together for nothing. We're too divided. I mean, look at the race right here in Baltimore for mayor. You've got so many people running, blacks against blacks. And so all of them got issues. Some of them won't turn over their financial records. Some of them got problems of improprieties already listed on them. And yet we've got an election coming in just a few days. In fact, June the 2nd is going to be the election here in Baltimore. And the Baltimoreans, I live in the county, so I can't vote, but the Baltimoreans got to elect the mayor. Either they're going to keep the one that they have or they're going to vote somebody else in. But the
yeah.
problem is we got so many of them running until all they're going to do is split the vote. And so it makes it easy for somebody to just walk in because we have not done our homework. We have not challenged them. We have not held their feet to the fire. We have not inquired to them personally about what it is that they can do in our best interest. And I don't know about you, Dr. Davis, but when I think about it and I start talking about it, I get, as you can see, I get worked up because
Yes,
I've
sir.
got family, I've got children, I've got sons, daughters, nieces and nephews, brothers, sisters. I've got family members that live in the city. And when I look at what's going on, even with the murder rate and the disrespect of police officers, and when I look at the changes in our school system and how for years it's been just in disarray, one of the most funded educational systems in America, and yet we're still dealing with issues with improper grade changing and stuff like that. All I've got to say is somebody better get up off their lazy. Well, I better not say that. But somebody better get up and do something, because if we just sit back on the sidelines, nothing's going to happen and things are going to be turned around. We've got to get involved. We have got to make a difference. And I know we've got some millennials possibly watching, and I want to talk to you, millennials and Generation X and Generation O and Generation Y and whoever you are. Listen, you need to get registered so that we can make a difference. We can't do it by ourselves.
That's right.
We can't do it. We have to get involved if we
That's
ever
right.
expect to have change. I don't know, Dr.
Absolutely.
Davis. You better say something because I'm getting worked up.
Yes, sir. Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I know in Pennsylvania, our primary is coming up June the 2nd as well. And once again, one of the things I love about Pennsylvania is that they're concerned about the schooling up here in Pennsylvania. My grandson, a couple years ago, graduated from the high school up here in Hanover, Pennsylvania. And then what they did was they asked him when he was in the 10th grade, what did he want to do? And he told them, well, I want to be in the business of producing films, directing, also in the business of making these video games and stuff. Now they worked with him from the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and they sent them to a university in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, he's doing well down there at Full Sail University. And once again, what they told him was when he went down there, he told them what he wanted, what they wanted to do. They put up money for scholarship for him, and I was grateful for that because once again, the people up here recommended him to the school.
Mm-hmm.
And my son and I and my wife, we took him down there. They loved his mannerism. They loved everything about him. And when they told him, said, as soon as you get here, they told him, look us up because we want to help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. And I'm saying that once again, up here, I know that they really strive on education. These are the questions you got to be asking your mayor. What are you going to do for the school system in Baltimore City? What are you going to do with the crime rate in Baltimore City? How are you going to help Baltimore with all these issues that Baltimore has? The last couple of mayors that we had in office made some mistakes. So what have you learned so when you come in office that you won't make those same mistakes? I mean, these are things that we need to be asking the mayors when they come in. I don't mean to get hyped up and everything, but I'm like you, looking at the country, looking at Baltimore City and what have you. Once again, we're in a tight situation, and people need to wake up and realize, hey, we need to vote. You need to make your voice heard.
But
And
you
so
know,
once
Dr. Davis,
again,
you don't have to apologize for getting hyped up. I think we need to get hyped up. In fact, we need to hype up some of the folk that's watching us. Maybe if we get some folk hyped up, we can get some things done and get some things accomplished. I heard one of the persons, I ain't gonna call their name, but one of the persons had the audacity in my book to make a recommendation to have lower the age for voting. Wanted to lower the age, I believe, to 17, 16 or 17 years old. And my question is, what does a 16 and a 17-year-old know about voting? They don't even have enough sense to get their lazy hind parts up out of bed in the morning and go to school. They're certainly not
Exactly.
going to go to their classes. They're certainly not paying attention in school. They're certainly not
Exactly.
doing their homework. How do we know? All we have to do is look at their grades. If
That's right.
their grades was up, if they were achieving and excelling, then there would be no need for teachers and school administrators to be changing grades. And yet you want to give them the right to cast a vote to make a difference in what's going to affect my life and your life and our other family members' lives. When I heard that proposal, I just shook my head. That's why
What
we need competent leadership. That's why we need persons who are listening to us, who are hearing our concerns, who are not so much making us promises, but just vowing to do the right thing.
absolutely, absolutely. You know, when they lowered the voting age to 18, the reason that they did it was because once again they were saying, well, you'll be at 18, they're being drafted in the military. So
Mm-hmm.
if they've been drafted in the military, why can't they vote? They have a right to vote for their leader and what have you. So that's how they dropped it down to 18, the voting right, because once again, these people were getting drafted. And I know when I signed up, uh, uh, be honest with you, I was getting drafted. And my number 18, I was 18, and they said, yeah, you have the right to vote. When they told me that, I signed up. I signed up to vote because I said, yeah, okay, here we go. I have a right to vote. And not only do I have a right to vote, but once again, it's a privilege to vote, to elect your officials. You have that privilege to say, I'm going to decide who's going to be my mayor. I'm going to decide who's going to be my president. I'm going to decide who's going to be my city council person or whatever. Once again, you have this right to vote. And so up here, they put signs out for judges. They want to be a judge, so you have to vote on it. But once again, you got to go and do your homework and check out the record because you got to find out, what kind of person are they. I mean, we got enough of these racist people out here as judges because if a black man mess up, he's going to get more time than the white man. So you got to make sure you look at who you're putting in office and who you're voting for and what have you. And so once again, we're living in such crazy times like never before, and we're going backwards rather than going forward. And it hurts my heart because I see so many things going on in Baltimore City, the city I grew up for many years before I moved to Pennsylvania. And then I see things going on. Just by the grace of God, I guess, in Hanover, we don't have as much stuff going on like they have over in York, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. But once again, things are happening. And so I'm just saying that we have that right to vote. And I want people to understand, take advantage. Take advantage of what you have to use it that we may vote and get the right people in office. And because once again, I'm telling you, you put the wrong person in office, you will be in trouble again. And we're already in enough trouble with number 45 and all
Well,
the things that he's doing. And I found out the other day, well, not the other day, but a couple of weeks ago, that the Republican Party, they're signing up people to register to vote. They're pushing it because once again, they're saying, well, in case Trump can't get Russia, China, whoever to pull some strings and get things done and all this kind of stuff. So we got to get people in place. And so this is why it's so important that you need to register to vote. You need to get out there, make sure you register, fill out the forms, be accountable for, once again, who we put in office.
Well, I'm so glad, Dr. Davis, you mentioned judges. In my research for preparing for this broadcast, I pulled up some information about number 45. Uh, People don't realize that the president has the right and the privilege to appoint judges. And already, this president has appointed more judges overall than anybody other than President Carter. Already, he has appointed over 187 judges. 50 of them are appeals judges. Now, here is what people don't understand about this process. When these judges are appointed, for the most part, these judges are appointed for life.
Right.
For life.
That's right.
And
That's
the
right.
ones that he are appointing are young age, which means they will be in office for the next 30, 40, and in some cases 50 years.
Yep.
And most of these judges that he are appointing are right-wing judges.
Yep. That's right. That's right. And
Judges that when certain cases come before them, we cannot expect to get a fair,
that's right.
a fair trial.
That's
We
right.
can't afford to get, we can't look forward to getting a justice served. Look at what they just did last month when they decided, yes, they decided to let the one guy let him out, and they were talking about dropping the charges, the one the president had who served with the president.
Yeah.
I mean, and he pleaded guilty
Yep.
to the charges.
Yep.
He pleaded guilty. And they decided they're going to let him out and drop the charges.
Yep.
What does that say for the judicial system? What does that say for fair and equitable justice? What does that say? And of course, he didn't look like us.
Exactly.
But yet, I read a report that I think it was Kilpatrick, the mayor of Detroit, I think it was, where they denied him.
Yep.
They denied him
Yep. That's right.
free release after he had already served several years of his sentence. They denied him. Why? We know why.
Yep.
Because of the color of his skin.
That's right.
But yet, many of our Caucasian friends, or not even friends, or Caucasian persons, have seemed to be able to get the benefit of the doubt. Why?
Yep.
Because we've got the wrong people in office. Because somebody didn't think it was important enough to cast a vote. Maybe it was raining on that day, and they didn't want to get their hair, their doo-dah messed up. Maybe they didn't want to go out because it was too hot. And now look at what we have to deal with. I tell
Yep.
you, it's a shame. Not only does Baltimore have so many people running for mayor, but we've got quite a few people running for president of the city council. And many of them are African Americans. I don't understand why they cannot get together and decide who has the best chance, and everybody put their weight and their support behind one person. I don't understand why we can't do that. I don't know why we can't get members. We've got all of these clergy. You and I are clergy. We got all of these clergy organizations. Why can't we call them together, set them down at the table, and ask them who do they think have the best chance? Hear from them, and then let us tell them, well, we think or we feel that this individual has the best chance. So let's all get behind them and vote them in, and then we can groom their successor when they run to move up to something higher. I don't understand why we can't come up with a plan, Dr. Davis. Our Caucasian friends do it.
I know. But see, it's once again, the black man mentality is It's all about me, myself, and I. If I can't get it, I'm gonna stop you from getting it. And that's the way, for some reason, that's the way we are. We just think it's all about me. So I got to get it. I got to get it. I'm just as qualified as anybody else. So let me have it. Because once again, I deserve a chance at it. And this is what they feel. But once again, are you doing the work? Are you considering the people? Do you understand what you have to do when you become this leader in the political realm? But see, once again, it's all about showmanship and whatever. Now, as far as the clergy concerned, I don't know about them because sometimes I think they on the pay list of, hey, you know, if I do this for you, what you gonna do for me? Or what am I gonna get out of it? But it's sad to say, it's really sad to say that once again, we as a people have not learned to be trustworthy and honest about what we are doing. We don't
Not
have we
not only
huh?
that, not only that, but we don't take the time to check into backgrounds and conduct a thorough investigation. I heard that the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance in Baltimore endorsed the candidate Mary. I forget what her last name is.
Ari Miller.
Yes, only to discover that she is under investigation for campaign fraud.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, you mean to tell me nobody on that in that alliance raised that question before they threw their endorsement behind her? I mean, come on now. We
No.
we have got to stop being lazy. We've got to
But,
stop being lazy.
but once
And we
again,
have to put the work in.
if we put you in office, what are you going to do for us? See, this is the whole mentality. If we put you in office, what are you going to do for us, the Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance? What are you going to do for us? If something come up, are you going to listen to us? Are you going to call us to the office and sit down at the round table and listen to us? Well, you get me in there, yeah, I'll look at you. But once again, my thing is, once again, what is your record before you get there? Because if you cheated before, what to say you're going to cheat once you get in there?
Well, not only that, the reason that we have so many people running for office is because there seems to be so much cheating going on in City
Well,
Hall. The
that's
whole
ex-
system needs to be reformed.
that's
The
exactly
whole
what I'm
system
saying.
needs to be reformed.
That's
And
exactly what I'm saying.
that good old boy system has gotten us nowhere.
Yep.
Well, it has gotten us somewhere. It's gotten us deeper in the hole, gotten us
Yeah.
in more trouble. And I tell you, our young people are really hurting.
Yeah.
Our seniors are really hurting.
Yep.
Our educational system is really hurting.
Yes,
Our
sir.
police department is really hurting.
Heard it. Yes,
I
sir.
mean, how in the world can you have someone to make a recommendation in the middle of a pandemic
Yep.
where people are losing their lives and they make a recommendation to cut personnel and lay off people in the EMS system?
Yeah.
They are the ones that are going out retrieving these persons from houses and businesses when they have become sick to the point where they need to be hospitalized. And we're talking about reducing the staff in
Yeah.
the middle of a pandemic. Are you
You,
serious?
you see what that mentality is, don't you?
Man,
You see
listen,
what you see what they're thinking is that? This is how crazy we living in crazy times. I'm telling you.
Dr. Davis, all I know is it's time for us to wake up and smell the roses.
Yes, sir.
It appears that too many of us have been smelling artificial plants
Yep.
that may have artificial air fresheners attached to them.
Yeah.
And so we're not really looking at reality. We're not really looking at the way things are. But I know there's a lot going on right now in our nation. But
Yep.
because this is election time, and by the time we come back on next week, the election will have taken place. I thought it was important enough for us to talk about why voting is so important tonight. I,
Right.
I know that there's looting, rioting going on down in Minnesota. I understand that. And our
Right.
prayers is with those family members. And we are standing with them for justice. I know there was a press conference this evening, but yet out of the press conference, we did not hear what we wanted to hear. And what we wanted to hear was that the individuals that was involved have been taken into custody. And we did not hear that. You know why we didn't hear that? Because the people that are in office are not in our favor. They're not in our favor. And if it wasn't for the video camera, it wasn't
Yep.
for bystanders recording what happened, the truth will have not even come out.
Yep.
Same thing with the situation in Georgia. How long did those men stay free before they were taken into custody?
Yep.
I mean, this happened back in February.
Yep.
And the only reason that they were taken in custody was because the video got leaked.
Yep.
All I'm saying to my friends, my Facebook constituents, listen, one thing about it, Let's Talk About It is a show that will deal with some real issues. Oh, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. We've got some guests that will be joining us. You're going to be surprised of some of the people that have already agreed to be on our program. We're just working out scheduling with their office. But we're going to talk and deal with some tough issues. We're not just about stroking egos. I mean, we're going to ask some tough questions. We're going to ask some questions to doctors and medical personnel about how they're doing with this COVID virus and some of the stuff that they've been telling us that is not true. How they have been asked, doctors have been asked to inflate the numbers, and then we come to find out that even some of the reports we can't even trust the numbers, even though we have over 100,000. I think the last a report that I saw was over 100,000, 190 some persons have died as of a few hours ago,
Yep.
and yet we still have a lot that we have to learn. We have a lot
Yep.
we have to uncover. I tell you, so much information has been coming in to both you and I, and we've been sharing information. Uh, all I got to say is be careful of this 5G that they're talking about. Be careful of it. Be careful
Right.
of this virus vaccine that they're talking about. That they're talking about possibly making it mandatory once it come out that everybody has to take it. And if you don't take it, the possibility of you being incarcerated. Be careful about that. Lastly, before we go off, Dr. Davis, I got a notice today that they are calling for, in light of what has happened in Minnesota and what has happened in Georgia and a couple other places where things have happened, they're calling for the African American community. Uh, I don't know who started it or who instituted it or who brought it up, but the person that sent it to me, I have reached out to them. I'm trying to get in touch with them so that we can get them on our show. But they are trying to get the African American community to do what's called a blackout day. And that day is the 20, July the 7th, 2020. They're asking on that day that we do not spend one dime. One dime. Don't spend one dime on July the 7th. July the 7th. That's what they're asking. I'm probably sure that many of you all have seen it posted on Facebook and other media, social media. But they're asking that we as African Americans do not spend one dime on July the 7th. And you may ask, well, why? What is that going to do? I think what they're trying to show is the value of the American dollar, the African American dollar. It is said that together we have $3.9 trillion,
Yeah.
not billion, but $1 trillion of economic spending power in the African American community. And if you think we don't have any money, answer me this question. Why is it that the Koreans, the Chinese, and the Latinos and the Greeks, why are they opening up businesses in our community if we don't have any money?
Right.
They got the grocery stores, the little corner grocery stores, right? Because they know we're not going to go make market. We're going to run to the corner store. They got the sub
Yep.
shops because they know we're not going to cook a balanced meal. We'd rather
Yep.
go to the sub shop and get us a cheese steak or some wings and fries. They call it a chicken box and a half and half. Huh? That's what we're going to do. Where else are
Yep.
we going to spend our money? We're going to go to the cleaners. We're going to keep our clothes clean. Where else are we going to spend our money? We're going to get our hair did and our nails and our toes done. That's what we're going to do. Guess what else we're going to do? Us are going to the liquor stores. And
Yep.
you check the record of all of those businesses in our community, how many of them are owned by African Americans? Very few. I remember when I was growing up, and I know we're coming close to the end of our program, in the Sandtown, Winchester area, before it was known as Sandtown, Winchester, my father had a corner grocery store. It was called Al's Confectionery. And we were the only colored corner grocery store in the community. Next door to us was a liquor store that was owned by a Jew. Name was Doc. Up the street and around the corner, there was a little mini market that was owned by Greeks. But they called our store the colored store. And most of the people in the community came and shopped at our store. Well, Dr. Davis, our time is about up. And I want to thank you for sharing with us this evening as we talked about why vote, why voting is so important. Any final words you want to give?
Well, once again, I really want people to understand the severity of our situation right here in America because if you don't vote, we're headed back to another 4 years of this nonsense. And so, once again, I'm encouraging you, I'm begging you, I'm pleading with you. Please register to vote, and please, those who have already registered, please vote. Please don't be suppressed. Don't be um,
Naive.
absent-minded. Huh?
Don't be naive.
Don't be naive. Yes, but please get out and vote. Trump asked the question, "What does the black have to lose?" And I'm telling you, you see how we're dying. This coronavirus is no joke, and they're saying the majority of blacks is the one who's dying. Elderly, they're dying. And so we need to once again do something about this president. Last weekend, everybody's suffering 100, already 100,000. You know what he does? He goes golfing because he doesn't care. It's not about him. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up all your time, but I know when y'all, Pastor Major, talking about that story that y'all had, and I know your father gave out credit because you know back then black people would go to the stores. They say, "Sir, we don't have it, but my mom said she'll pay you on Friday," and they gave that credit. Once again, I mean, it's about the unity that we had back then that we're willing to work together.
Yeah, I know. We had that little composition book, and they would come in and they would put it on their books. And when they got paid once a month, one of the first things they would do is
That's
they would
right.
come down and pay their tab.
That's
Dr.
right.
Davis, thank you again for joining us, being our co-host today as
Thank you
we
for
talk
having me.
about the importance of voting. Stay tuned. We've got another hot topic. We're going to get into some stuff next week. Join us, like our Facebook page, Send us some comments. Let us know. We need to know. We need to hear from you. We need to know. Email us as it's on the screen. Thank you again. Stay tuned for next week. I've been your host, Reverend Edward Mason. Dr. Joseph Davis has been my co-host. And once again, you have been listening to Let's Talk About It.